Netflix's animated adaptation of Castlevania has found success in the eyes of many, stemming from those who are die-hard fans of the gaming series or drawing in those who love adult animated works of fiction. All who enjoyed the show had plenty of points that culminated their love for the series, but what I've come to realize is that the factor of relatability has been common, which is why a character like Hector can become a fan favorite through a subset of the fanbase's collective sympathy and understanding. Not me though. But I can see why so many people gravitated towards the poor guy or were repelled by him throughout events of the show. Due to the fact that I made an analysis for his fellow Forgemaster and Isaac that seemed to have resonated with so many in the past year, it's only right that I finally look into Hector and see what made him an estranging character amongst the overall Castlevania fanbase. Let's get it. Yo. Similar to our favorite Forgemaster, Hector is a returning character from the game series, particularly from the title game Curse of Darkness, where he was the protagonist that us players embodied in opposition to the first iteration of Isaac.
Indeed, with this the most forbidden of arts, a wisp of conjured matter can be transformed into a hellish devil!
What the heck?
Practically adorned in the same attire and visage as the game, being of European descent and white silverish hair flowing down to neck length. But what's most important that was taken from Curse of Darkness is his personality, being overly sentimental and naive to the point of conflicting his interests and thoughts. And so here is where the slight differences between Curse of Darkness and the animated series' Hector start to surface. Unlike the docile, gullible man-child that the Netflix animated series fabricated, I'm here to inform that your view of Hector has been skewed because in the game series, he's kind of a badass. I'm not exactly sure why Warren Ellis went this route with Hector's iteration in animated series, because it almost felt like he used Hector as a sacrificial lamb. While he kept the focal point of his origins in and not truly seeing eye to eye leading to his betrayal of Dracula, he seems to have disregarded all other appealing attributes such as being a formidable warrior, having a strong will, cautiousness, and weapon mastery. Meanwhile keeping traits like empathy, forging, and mastering the art of sympatry. My guess is that, like all other characters in the series, he was building Hector to be relatable to the audience. And for the life of me, man, I could not stand him for the seasons 2 and on. Yet as always with these character studies, I want to understand why I loathe this character upon my first viewing of the show in full. Castlevania is originally an action game franchise that delves into dark, supernatural, and religious fantasy, but it also never shied away from telling a compelling plot that involved its protagonist. The Netflix series has been heavily influenced by two entries, Symphony of the Night and Curse of Darkness. The influences of Curse of Darkness started to come in play with the introduction of Isaac and Hector come Season 2, but as I stated before, their iterations were skewed compared to the source material. While Hector almost looks exactly like a carbon copy, it's his escapades that deviated and rattled the very fabric of his outcome in the overall plot. Why he turned out the way he did, and where did he stem from. Combing through Hector's iterations throughout the series, leading me to focus on differences between him and Isaac. How originally Hector was the favorite general, but now it's Isaac. How Isaac originally wanted to resurrect Dracula, but now it's Hector. Then I came upon their reunion in Season 4, where Isaac says to him,
"You and I, Hector, we have been children. Revenge is for children. It is our duty to grow up. Don't you think?"
And it finally clicked. Isaac and Hector are both victims of childhood trauma, which led both to grow into adulthood ridiculing mankind. But that ridicule has an exception. We already know where Isaac stems from, as I pinpointed in my previous character analysis video for him. While Isaac went through phases to steadily grow into a man of his own, Hector was stunted. He may physically look and present himself as an adult, but his subconscious mind and actions reflect the impulses of a child. As Dracula explains to them both why they were chosen to lead the war effort, Hector reflects on what set him on this path, hearing the echoes of his parents' ignorance while staring into the fire, revealing the cruelty of his mother towards him along with his father's greedy sentiments before their inevitable demise. Hector's magical prowess also seems to stem from his father, who mentions his affinity for alchemy as a family practice passed on to him. Instead of carrying on a family tradition, Hector embraces appreciation for life, therefore deciding to use his gifts to adopt pets, an action that seemed to distance the relationship between him and his biological parents, but foster a budding relationship with the king of the vampires. Presumably, having lost both parents while still very young, it's highly likely he grew into adulthood with no human contact or guidance from an older figure, doing as he pleases, while living a life of solitude in reaction to the trauma and ridicule he faced growing up. These years of solitude were suitable for such an individual who is gifted in the arcane, giving him the time to practice and master his unique form of necromancy without opposition. For you see, Hector's very empathetic when it comes to life, especially creatures that can be guided, and if he can be that guidance, he willingly takes the mantle. The dynamic between master and pet is something he instinctually gravitates towards, an attribute of his that tends to be a gift and a curse. We see this play out in every instance of Hector's part of the story on the show. This gift has allowed him to express his true nature, hence why there's almost always a reanimated dead animal in his vicinity kept as a pet. The man was literally living in a barn secluded from human society, and his pastime was to reanimate roadkill. While having disdain in his heart, he relished at the opportunity to subjugate and reduce his fellow humans to livestock that can be called. While having this opportunity to play caretaker, it has opened up the avenue for him to be played for his willingness to give the benefit of the doubt. Dracula, who initially was fascinated with his abilities and saw him throughout his travels, returned to enlist his service after Lisa was murdered. This scene entailed Hector and Dracula's relationship, showing Dracula to be presumably reasonable while steadfast to mask his intent, preying on Hector's willful blindness. Hector only saw the opportunity to create more pets out of humans, and thought of it as a natural balance as a result of human cruelty. Whether in new night creatures created from corpses that are enslaved to his will, or prisoners of war kept as vampire sustenance, following Dracula's perceived temporary crusade. Hector's not a fool. His awareness and sense of logic when it comes to the natural order of things is intact. He is highly intelligent and is often praised for it on multiple occasions by Dracula, Isaac, Carmilla, Lenore, and even Godbrand of all people. Contrary to how things played out in the animated series, he's not defenseless and has the ability to engage in combat, even in the likes of vampire hierarchy, evident by Godbrand's hesitance to provoke his anger as he holds his hammer in hand, the same way he was hesitant in Isaac's presence. The way that he took Lenore hostage prior to her revealing the ability to shapeshift. There might even have been a slight hesitation from Dracula when they were discussing terms of him helping enact revenge on those who killed Lisa. So it's very difficult for me to believe that a Forgemaster could be so fragile. But as I stated before, there's an innate impulse that is childlike, putting him in situations that sway in favor of being preyed upon mentally. For an entire year, he is able to witness Dracula's descent into insanity during the war effort, yet continues to supply his forces with soldiers. Godbrand of all generals has even pointed out to Hector that he is a strategic piece on Dracula's board, hence why he invests in him. The subtle swooning and praises from Carmilla paved the way for him to consider the point of view, while doubting the objective of Dracula's intent. It's so ironic how she forces him to reveal how easily he can be manipulated, by simply asking him how he came into Dracula's service, revealing his longing to be acknowledged or praised, and in return, he feels obligated to follow along in servitude like a good old boy, like a loyal pet. As a result, this gives her the window of opportunity to slowly influence his actions, going behind Dracula's notice to send night creatures to investigate and attack the main trio at the Belmont Hold. While that takes place, she proceeds to invade his mental space by manipulating his fragile mind state in the following episodes. Having success in that avenue swayed him to try convincing Isaac and Dracula that Carmilla's directive is the best approach. Fortunately, both were already aware of Hector's main focus in all of this, and in order to keep the peace throughout the court, it is decided to give Carmilla her way to drown out the scheming. And this is where the show unveils openly Hector's true nature and how he deliberately invites its ramifications. Carmilla reveals her true intent by confidently stating she is in control, and when Hector tries to question her motives, she gives it straight to him.
You know why I had to do it? Because I am surrounded by children and animals and dying old men. There are perhaps 4 other women in this castle, and they all glare from the edges, either disempowered by posturing man-children, or too paralyzed by sheer fucking rage to do anything.
And which am I? Child or animal?
Puppy. Somewhere between the two.
Ouch. Unlike the rest in the castle, she doesn't even view him as a child or a wild animal. He's just simply a willing pet. Given history, this instance in the story is just a repetitive habit. Carmilla is simply following Dracula's blueprint, hiding her true intent from him because he is easily coerced into following their plans and schemes. This is revealed to Isaac by Dracula.
He's a child in a man's body. That does make him easy to lie to.
And Carmilla manipulated Hector's history with Dracula to make him become in opposition to his mission. Even throughout the betrayal at Brela, Hector still didn't have the mental fortitude to take the opportunity to dispose of Carmilla, or even have his hammer as a safety measure. After all was said and done, this fool still gave Carmilla the benefit of the doubt, foregoing his opportunity to escape to sit outside her hiding spot from the sun like a guard dog, leading to being taken full advantage of by the same woman who chastised him into betraying Dracula. What exactly did he expect? Why didn't he just forge a flying night creature to fly? Oh wait, he left his hammer in the castle. What is wrong with this guy? I'm sure we all know what to expect from here. He gets dragged back to Styria, thrown in jail naked, and is expected to create night creatures for the Supreme Karen. I thought for a minute here that Hector's story would take a more respectable route. It kinda looked like he learned his lesson and was willing to go out on his shield to regain some shred of dignity, up until Lenore comes into the picture and the Simp Brigade rallied for this one. I mean, if you're a guy who's into underdeveloped teenage looking women, then by all means, drool away, buddy. Anyway, I really thought that this was the moment where Hector attempted to turn the tables and began to redeem himself. He played his role, acted like a wounded animal, and then BAM! Went for the opening.
Hey, art of war, baby. Deception. Let them believe that this was done. Everything is for a cause. Everything is for a process.
But, you know, when you're all battered, malnourished, and missing your weapon, how much room for success is there? As this diplomatic endeavor continues between Lenore and Hector, she proceeds to pick and dissect his previous experiences, debating and persuading him to see what she would like him to see. Like Dracula, then Carmilla before her, Lenore forges her unique version of the blueprint. She outright lets him know he is the pet, but plans to reward him unlike Dracula. Not only does she acknowledge and compliments his intelligence like Carmilla, she goes further and seduces him. First with food, next with warmth, then with clothes, all strategically planned for him to ask to go on a walk, giving him the illusion of suit of freedom. And what do you know? The cycle continues. Even though he can feel the game being played, his nature takes over yet again, allowing his mind to be filled with sweet nothings, gestures of good faith, and with a drop of potential romance to a fault. And the following night, he once again is mind-fucked into ensnaring his own freedom to another's will, and in a twist of events, he is forced to realize once again that he is the pet.
And I gave you what you always really needed. I made you into my pet.
At this point comes season 4, it's very noticeable that Hector has in a way learned to accept his role in the upshot of the past year. Walking freely throughout the castle without fear during the daylight, breathing the air, greeting her vampire soldiers while donning Styria's insignia. I thought this was going to be a tamed Hector sacrificing his dignity, but there were moments in this scene that showed he is actually making use of his acclaimed intelligence. soaking up as much knowledge as possible and then scheming during the vampire after hours. Then during the night, Lenore stops in to check in on her sub, but also to complain that she feels cast aside by the others as useless. Throughout this interaction, I can see why both of them became a thing, because they're more alike than perceived. Both Hector and Lenore are the grown children of their entourage. One is indecisive and willfully blind, the other is possessive and an attention whore, but they both have an affinity for the master and pet relationship dynamic. On this foot, Lenore is the master and has established how and when she will reward Hector for being a good boy toy. But most important of all, they share the pleasure of not being taken seriously by others, leading to them being misled by those they trusted. By the time Hector finished his hammer, there were only two things he had to look forward to in order to rectify his past sins: resurrecting Dracula and the inevitable fate from his nightmares. I can imagine Hector tossing and turning, dreaming of Isaac exacting revenge in the name of Dracula.
Hector! Hector!
And so the day came. It was time for the sibling rival Forgemasters to settle their differences. Shape-shifting amidst the battle outside, Lenore rushes to secure Hector's safety, but little did she know, he was prepared for it all. Explaining to Lenore his plans within the last month while caged in, she retaliates that he has gone mad, but Hector clears the air.
I've been mad. This doesn't feel like that. Maybe I've gone sane.
As Isaac makes his entrance, he shields her from his wrath the same way she did him with the sisters. Lenore is no longer the master. Hector flipped the roles. While in the role taking personal accountability, it took Isaac to let him know that it is enough for them to find their own way. The short reunion has ignited a new chapter in both their lives. Where previously these two only worked together under Dracula's cause, they have now grown close enough to willingly assist one another for a common goal. It shows by the way that Hector relinquishes his means of escape and cuts off his own finger to assist Isaac in his endeavor. The way the blood from Hector's wound metaphorically seals their newfound bond of friendship. Then after the deed is done and both Forgemasters contemplate next steps to control their own destinies, Hector explains on his end that he just wants to be left alone with Lenore, read, and build things. As he takes time with Lenore, they debate over what has gone wrong and critique the end result of Carmilla's ambitions. How the life of a vampire compared to humans can mirror the point of view of seeing the minor differences between seeking strength and seeking power. That strength is building upon short trials along the path like a human, while power is constantly a hunger to consume more power, like a vampire. With that realization, that now she will be in a cage monitored by human strength, Lenore has resolved to ending her immortal existence, showing the resolve that Hector should have had when Carmilla gave him the choice to be beaten to death or be taken captive in Brayla. Yet, even in this situation that he does not want, he has grown enough to accept the things he cannot change, allowing Lenore to go off of her own will while resolving to move forward and chronicle what he has learned to teach the next generation. Hector's story is a reflection on those of us who live based upon past trauma and negative experiences. Similar to most of the main characters, childhood experiences have shaped their lived adult responses by how they perceive and interact with society. In his case, growing up without adult guidance due to being shunned by adults, embedded in a childish perspective that became outdated once his vessel evolved. How ironic for a man of high awareness becoming blind to the static laws of nature. Prolonging accountability forced him through similar trials that helped ingrain cause and effect based upon his decisions. While many may have the same end goal, the path to it is never linear, and Hector is the personification of one in many. Thank you for your patience, as I know many of you have been anticipating this specific character analysis. Hector's dissection actually took way longer than I expected due to his complicated nature, but I'm glad that I was able to finally deliver. What's your view on Hector, and how has your outlook been on his path in the Netflix series? Let me know your thoughts on my analysis, whether you agreed, disagreed, or have a different take on Hector's journey. I look forward to hearing from any and all of you in the comment section after subscribing to the channel and dropping a like for your boy. If you enjoy the content and are feeling generous, a super thanks would go a long way, as this sort of long-winded content takes a lot of time and effort to develop properly for your viewing pleasure. Either way, stay tuned for more content coming down the pipeline. You know the vibes. It's Kaizoku Sleven. Appreciate you.